Stand by to launch FanStream Sports.
3, 2, 1. Let's start.
Hello, sports fans. Welcome to FanStream Sports. Nothing but pure sports.
And welcome, everybody, to FanStream Sports, powered by DSP Media. This is the Fighting Irish Daily Blitz, and I'm your host, Rob Fedoff, also known as RPT. You can find me on Twitter at PFedoff. So for episode 77 today, we're going to be talking about two departures from the Notre Dame football team this week that have entered the transfer portal. One has already declared where he's going to play next year. So I want to just kind of calm everybody down too. I know a lot of people are freaking out, but this is a new era in college sports, especially for football and basketball, where there's going to be more turnover than we've seen in the past, since you don't have to sit out a year for transferring like you used to. Whether that'll change in the upcoming years, because at times it seems like this is getting a little ridiculous. But I will say this too. I would love to have these two individuals on the program next year, but they were not full-time starters. As a matter of fact, I don't want to list every single Notre Dame player that has left the program since the end of last season, but none of those players were full-time starters as well. So that's one good thing to look at. The only thing with this one player, the depth at that position. So let's before I get into that, let's just say, so Tyler Buckner, last year he began this season as the starting quarterback, got hurt, was pretty much out the end of the year. He came back for the Gator Bowl, had an up and down day that day, but he was the MVP of the Gator Bowl. But after last week's performance during the spring game, it was obviously known that Sam Hartman would be the starter going forward. The other player leaving Notre Dame this week is he split time with both Aldrick Estime, pretty much Aldrick Estime last year, and then also sprinkled in there was Chris Tyree. So it's kind of a three-headed, I want to say a three-headed monster. I mean, that's if they were all, they're all solid players, but to me, a three-headed monster is just, where everybody's rushing for 1,000 yards. That didn't happen. But long story short, Logan Diggs has entered the transfer portal, and there's rumors that he's going to be reuniting with Coach Kelly down at LSU. We'll see how that happens. So for Tyler Buckner, I'm a little more concerned with that, not because of his playing ability, because that was up and down throughout his 2 seasons at Notre Dame. It's just the depth now. Sam Hartman, who I love as a quarterback, who I think if he stays healthy can do some amazing things this year. And I'm not saying we're going to win a national title, but we can become close or be in the hunt for a national title. If he gets hurt, we're down to redshirt freshman Steve Angeli, who I do like as a player, but he has not taken a college snap in his career. And then true freshman Kenny Minchie. So who knows? Maybe Notre Dame looks into the portal to see if there's some experienced guy out there just for depth. That's the only concern I have about Tyler Buckner leaving, though. He is a talented kid, don't get me wrong, had a great high school career, but his 2 seasons, and a lot of this really isn't his fault, injuries, I think a little poor coaching, especially during the Kelly Tommy Rees year that he was under them. But he's going to go to Alabama, which it does and doesn't shock me. And we'll get into that a little bit later too, but going to reunite with Coach Tommy Rees, who Nick Saban plucked away from Notre Dame earlier this year. He was our former offensive coordinator. Whatever he sees in Tommy Rees, I just don't know right now. Who's to say? Maybe they just, kick ass next year and Tommy Rees looks like a hell of an offensive coordinator and he's headed toward the NFL. Tyler Buckner looks like he's, an NFL draft type quarterback. I don't think that's going to be the case, but I've been wrong before. So let's first get into where I'm not concerned as much with Logan Diggs leaving. Just the fact being that we have so much depth at the running back position. So he split time with Chris Tyree and Aldrick Estime, mostly Aldrick Estime last year. So Aldrick Estime will be the number 1 running back next year. There's no doubt right there. And then there's also Jadarian Price. He sat out last year with an injury, but if he can stay healthy, very talented player. Then Jabron Payne, you saw him in the spring game last week, another very talented player out of Cincinnati. He'll be a redshirt sophomore, or I think a redshirt sophomore next year. If not, it's a redshirt freshman. My apologies if I got that wrong, but in any event, he has a lot of playing eligibility left. And then Jeremiah Love, true freshman. If worse comes to worse, and it wouldn't be a worse type situation, but if, let's just say there's, Aldrich Estime gets hurt, Jadarian's kind of dinged up, and they don't want to go to Jabron Payne right now, you can put back there Chris Tyree. This year, Chris Tyree has changed positions. He's going to be a slot receiver. But if we needed him, he's got tons of experience. The last 3 years, he's been a running back, splitting time with Logan Diggs, with Aldrich Estime, with Kyron Williams at the time before he entered the NFL draft. So what I'm just trying to say is we can go, if you take out Aldrich Estime even, we still have 4 running backs. I'm not concerned that much at all. And if for further, Logan Diggs, first year, 52 carries, 230 yards, 3 touchdowns. Not bad for a true freshman. He also had 6 receptions for 56 yards, 1 TD. Last season, he had a pretty solid year. Don't get me wrong. 165 carries, 820 yards rushing for 4 TDs, 6 receptions for 56 yards and 1 TD. However, Aldrich Estime, he had 9 less carries for 156 carries and 100 more yards than Logan Diggs for 920 yards and 11 touchdowns. And then he also had 9 receptions for 135 yards and 1 TD. So it seems like Logan had more of the carries and the receptions, but Aldrich Estime had more of the yards and touchdowns. And I just feel like Aldrich Estime, just look at the guy. He looks like a football player. He looks like a mini Jerome Bettis. He just overall talent-wise is better than Logan Diggs. And also, too, with Logan, ever since day one, there's been rumors, rumblings that, not that he didn't like Notre Dame, but he was homesick constantly. And since his freshman year in 2021, that's always been the talk of the town. And finally this week, he just said, yes, I want to be closer to home. And I bet you he ends up at LSU with Brian Kelly. Good luck to him. But I'm not as concerned with this. I'd love to have him still in the team, but we're loaded at running back, and that's just not a concern for me. So Tyler Buckner, as I mentioned earlier, the concern for me is just the depth right now, because last year he gets hurt and he wasn't playing that well anyway. And we had Drew Pine come in because you can't start a true freshman in Steve Angeli at the time. And we didn't have a really, it started out, it looked like our team was awful, but had we had a decent quarterback, I don't think we're 8-4. I think we're at worst 10-2. And, I'm trying to think positive here. I would love, obviously we would love to have Sam Hartman not get hurt, but there's always that possibility. If you go back to, Malik Zaire started out great in 2015. He gets hurt. Deshaun Kaiser comes in to spare him. Over the years, just even Dane Christ, he got hurt. And then who was it? Yeah, Dane Christ got hurt. At times, Everett Golson. It just seems like each year we've had, you can go back, prior years, that probably the most durable quarterback we had, even though I thought he was, he was a good kid, don't get me wrong, but I've said this before, Ian Book to me, even though he has the most wins at Notre Dame, was overrated to me as a quarterback, but he was durable. He missed 1 game when he broke that rib, and then he was back the next week. So I'm just trying to say, if you go back to other years, we've always had a quarterback get hurt and miss multiple games. And that's my concern just right now. If that happens to Sam Hartman, hopefully it doesn't, because if you just look at Tyler's stats, and I know he can't help when he gets hurt. He was a very prolific high school player, but he was hurt in high school too. And I'm just thinking, is this just going to be a common occurrence for him? We'll see when he heads to Alabama. So in 2021, he had 0 starts, but he was kind of a gimmick guy, kind of like what Tim Tebow was in 2006 down in Florida when Chris Leak was the starter at Florida when they won the national title. He had 21 completions out of 35 attempts, 60% completion percentage for 298 yards his freshman season, 3 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. And then rushing, that was his bread and butter, though. He was not like a option quarterback, but he was more successful just running the ball, where his passing was less to be desired, at least at this point in his career. 46 rushes for 336 yards, 3 TDs. Last year, and he only had 3 starts, Ohio State, Marshall, and then against South Carolina in the Gator Bowl. 46 completions out of 83 attempts, completion percentage only 55%, and for 651 yards passing, 3 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. So for his 2-year career, he's got 6 touchdowns to 8 interceptions. So more INTs to touchdowns. That's never good. I don't care if you've only played a couple games. That's still not a good stat. But then rushing wise, he had 36 rushes for 123 yards and 4 TDs. As I said earlier, he's a great running quarterback, but the more you run, we found out, I think that's going to, I think you always need a mobile quarterback, but for these quarterbacks that are like RG3, rookie of the year in the NFL, with the Redskins, now the Commanders, you just can't run a quarterback like that. They're going to get consistently hurt all the time. That's to me what Tyler Buckner's been these last 2 years. And I just nothing against the kid. He seems like a great kid, but what I've seen in the last 2 years, I'd love to have him just as a depth wise if Sam goes down. But as with Tommy Rees, decent offensive coordinator, but was he a special offensive coordinator, where, did this offensive guru? No, both of them have just not impressed me during their careers is what I'm trying to say. But in any event, he had 12 total TDs if you add the rushing and the passing TDs. So good luck to him. But for both of these kids too, I just don't understand, because Notre Dame sells the 4 for 40 program. If you're here 4 years, you're set up for the next 40 years with connections, a Notre Dame degree, on and on and on. Now with, summer type classes, Notre Dame accelerates their kids a little bit more. Those that can handle it, that is. As I mentioned in a previous podcast, Drew Pine graduated in 3 years. He's probably taking summer courses. And also those that enroll early, you get a jump start anyway. I got to think both Tyler and Logan Diggs were on pace to graduate in 3.5 years. For me, I know this is just me, I would have stuck it out one more year. If you got to share time, Logan, with Aldrich, so be it. And the thing is, too, he could have still shared time, had a decent season, declared for the NFL draft, and still made his money there. And then with the whole NIL, he could have made money as well. But Tyler, here's the thing, too. Stick it out one more year. If Sam gets hurt, not to say he was, hoping Sam would get hurt, you can showcase your skills. And if he's developed the way he should and he's improved, he's showing off his skills, not just for, possibly in the NFL, but to become the full-time starter the next year when, all 5-star CJ Carr's coming in. And then you're going to have competition with Kenny Minchie, CJ Carr, Steve Angeli, you name it. And then you get the Notre Dame. So let's say that happens, or worse yet, he doesn't. Sam Hartman doesn't get hurt. He doesn't see much playing time next year. And it's looking like, hey, either Kenny Minchie's going to be the starting quarterback, Steve Angeli, or CJ Carr is. Okay, but go enter the transfer portal, go somewhere else, but you got that Notre Dame degree too. Now he's not even going to have a Notre Dame degree. There's no guarantee he's going to be the starter down at Alabama. I know their quarterback situation is somewhat of a mess right now after their spring game. And that's one of the reasons why, from what I heard, Nick Saban and Tommy went after him. He's familiar with Tommy Rees. He's been in college now. He'll be entering his junior season. But to me, too, I don't see him even being the starter at Alabama. And it's just kind of funny here. I know I consider during my lifetime Nick Saban to be the GOAT, the greatest coach of all time. But I know we couldn't overtake Alabama on the field. We lost to them in 2013. And then, which would have been the 2012 season, then the 2020 season, 2021 New Year, we lost to the Rose Bowl in the playoffs. And both times, especially in 2013, we got killed in that game. It was a little bit more competitive in the Rose Bowl, but we couldn't beat them on the field and kind of get to that next step, get to that next level to win a playoff game, and then, hopefully eventually win a national title. But how ironic would this be? Nick Saban, plucking Tommy Rees from Notre Dame to Alabama to be their new offensive coordinator, who, he thinks he has the the talent and expertise to become a great offensive coordinator. We'll see. And now Tyler Buckner, the up and down, really I would say mostly down quarterback, especially with injuries at Notre Dame. I don't see them making Alabama a contender this year. Yes, they'll have tons of talent on that team. He'll have more talent around him, Tyler Buckner, I would say, than at Notre Dame. But I don't think it's that much of a gap anymore. But what I'm trying to get at is if they just have a really bad, or not even a bad season, but a mediocre 8-4, 9-3 type season, and Tommy's just not really developing that offense. Tyler, even if he doesn't become the starter, let's just say he has some playing time this year, and we see the stats that he had at Notre Dame, Alabama, I just see the Alabama program I'm just saying if I'm a recruit and say, oh, they got Tommy Rees is now the offensive coordinator, they've taken a step back. This Tyler Buckner kid, he looks worse at Alabama than he did at Notre Dame, or just the same. I can see this being the end of the era for Nick Saban, and maybe the end of or not at the era, but like the dynasty, I should say, of Alabama is what I'm trying to get at. I know right now Clemson has kind of taken a step back, but I think that's mostly because, Trevor Lawrence, they've just had really good quarterbacks, and with Deshaun Watson, Trevor Lawrence, and DJ Uiagalelei just wasn't that quarterback. Now, whether the quarterback this year will be better for them right now, but they have taken a step back. I still think they're a solid team, but without that quarterback, they just haven't been what they were, is what I'm trying to say. And I'm just saying, will Tommy Rees and Tyler Buckner be I don't want to say the demise of Alabama and Nick Saban, but where it kind of brings them back from a dynasty and powerhouse to just another, solid program. I'm saying Notre Dame even overtaking Alabama. I'm just trying to think of like a program right now, like kind of Oklahoma has taken a step back. USC, yeah, I know they had a great offense last year, but they're not a top 10 team. And that's what I'm getting at. They're not going to be a top 10 team anymore. I'm just speculating, but how ironic it would be. We can't beat them on the field right now, but by letting them have our offensive coordinator, our quarterback that just is not the starter anymore, and just can't more or less find his way right now, and it's not his fault. A lot of it's injuries, but how ironic that would be by taking our resources pretty much, and then just your program just kind of goes, I don't want to say downhill, but just from here, it kind of just, it's more or less average at best, or mediocrity. I'm babbling. I know I'm kind of babbling here, but just think about that. We can't beat them on the field right now, at least in the past seasons, but we, by plucking our resources, maybe that's the start of the end of the dynasty at Alabama is what I'm trying to say. So what else here? But just calm down right now, people. This is not a yes. The biggest thing for me is the depth with the quarterback. I get that, but right now we're fine. We're fine with people leaving. These aren't starters right now. As long as Sam Hartman stays healthy, these two departures are not going to affect this program at all next year. If Sam Hartman stays healthy is what I'm trying to say. So for any event, next podcast, I'll have like a brief. I thought this was going to be brief, but I got diarrhea of the mouth again. I'm going to go who got drafted from Notre Dame. Maybe I'll even have who are the free agent signings, because as of right now, it's just been Michael Mayer and Isaiah Foskey. And we'll talk about Notre Dame players in the draft. So thank you so much for joining me for episode 77. And as always, go Irish.